Hey, welcome back. If this is the first time that you ever checked out one of my videos, I apologize. You probably showed up thinking that you're going to learn everything there is to know about waxing a boat. No, I got 300 videos. I just tell you little teeny things about little teeny things. Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you had a good break from me. I was sick, got a little bit of the virus. Don't know what it was, but yeah, kind of kicked my ass. So since I hadn't seen you last, this black cobalt that's getting a little bit of a wash down right now, that was the last one I touched. Replaced his emblems, did the full kit on the outside, and now she's getting a wash to clean up all my mess, which is awesome. Then I get to show up to this beauty, which she's got some acreage, not gonna lie. There's some stuff that's going on here, so let's walk around this really quick just to give you an idea of what I look at when I see a boat. So you can see the reflection isn't terrible. It's not bad at all. It's got a little orange peel to it. It's not the sharpest, like you're not able to focus on the gravel. It's a little fuzzy. I'm gonna hopefully be able to clean that out, and then we can look at some places where there was a fender that just sat here and rubbed up against the surface, took a little shine out of it. There's been some stuff that, he's touched some things. There's another little, this isn't necessarily a fender rub. This comes out of, above here, he's got like a heater vent, and for some reason there's been some stuff gushing out of there, eating into his gel coat a little bit. Back here we got another, what could be a fender rub. I'm pretty sure it's a fender rub. And yeah, it's not too bad. And then just a little bit of fogginess. Not bad. Again, this isn't something that I'm looking at and thinking, oh yeah, we got to super do this bistich. No, you don't have to. I'm thinking honestly a little bit of heavy cut and some perfected. On the top, however, it's got a little bit of a semblance of a shine. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get too close, but on the top, for the most part, unless I see something that's got a little fuzziness to it or some dryness, I'm just going to use a foam pad and some perfected EXAC. And I think you can appreciate that the top doesn't look terrible. I mean, it's got a reflection. So let's go to the, yikes, didn't even see this, yikes. That's just a big old transfer, probably hitting something plastic. And of course on a black boat, it's just gonna, leave a mark. So I'll be cleaning up stuff like that. And on the other side, it doesn't look much different. A little bit dull, just like the other side, but not oxidized dull, just bad finish dull. And a couple more transfer marks on the side. And a couple spots where the fenders were rubbing up against it, and so it dried it out a little bit, scuffed up the surface. We'll be able to fix that, not a problem. Let's see. I think that's about it for this boat. Now, that said, there's some things that we should talk about. While I was sick, I decided to, and I probably shouldn't, honestly, if I think about it in the future. While I was sick, I decided to watch a couple videos about how to do a boat. And I learned a lot of things. I learned that your buffer rotation speed is important for some reason. I learned that some guys like to compound at a really aggressive angle and just push and push and push and push. And then they change up the speed and they go really fast, and then they try to flatten out a little bit, but they still keep an edge. And apparently I've been doing it wrong. And when I say that speed is irrelevant, I guess I'm dead wrong. And I apologize, guys. Who knew? For 20 some odd years I've been doing this and doing it wrong, dead wrong. Also, I've heard that you have to sand stuff. Just have to. You've got to sand stuff. Otherwise, there's no way you can get out the imperfections in gel coat, and you can't remove all the oxidation out of gel coat without sanding. I've learned all this. This is brand new to me. I don't believe any of it, but I've heard it. I've also seen people do wet sanding right in the marina, just, rubbing stuff on and hosing it off into the water. I guess I've been doing it wrong for a long time too. I would choose to do that in a boatyard so that all that crap could get collected and filtered, and so it didn't go into my lake, which I still drink out of. I don't want somebody doing gel coat wet sanding in my lake. Don't get me wrong, I know that boats are oil and gas and garbage and all that, that's fine, but I don't need to exacerbate the situation by wet sanding directly over my fish pond. Anyway, so I've learned a couple things, and I've seen some people do some stuff that, wow. I should actually do one of those videos where it plays behind me and I'm like, this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong, this is right. I don't want to do that, but I'll tell you, here's the quick way to know if somebody's full of crap. A, are they selling you anything? Do they have a giant truck and a giant trailer that they're financing to make themselves look cool? Do they brag about the expense of the boat that they're working on? Because I assure you, a boat that's 200 feet long that's gel coat, which is rare, they don't make them that big that are gel coat. You might be able to get a 120 footer that's gel coated. 120 footer versus a 21 footer, same stuff. Compound, wax, boat. Doesn't matter that it's a $1 billion boat. Doesn't matter that it's a Ferrari boat. Doesn't matter. None of that stuff matters. And if somebody's trying to tell you that the only way you can start a business like this is with 5 buffers and 200 discs and 1,800 pads and all the rags in the world and these 12 special compounds and bullshit. All you need is a buffer, maybe 2 wheels, one rough, one soft, a couple bottles of compound, a couple bottles of wax, and some soap. If you also have a deck brush and a couple rags, you're now a boat detailer. If you're good at that small amount of stuff, you're an awesome boat detailer. And now you can grow and you can buy more stuff, but you don't need anything to start this. Honest to God, you could start with just a buffer and 1 wool pad. And if nothing else, you can go marina to marina fixing up little scuff marks for people for 25 bucks a pop if you want. I would suggest getting a couple more pads and working a little harder at this than that. But the reality is there's a lot of people on YouTube trying to make this seem a lot harder than it is, and it's not. So if you're interested in learning how this can be easy and done by somebody with an attitude like this, hang out, keep watching, because I think what you're going to see is that it's as easy. It's not hard. I weigh 140 pounds. I don't push my buffer. I don't fight my buffer. If you watch any of my videos, you'll see that my buffer and I just kind of dance. And that's what I want you to learn how to do. I want you to learn how to make your buffer dance. If you do that, well, then you're not fighting it all day. If you're not fighting it all day, she's working for you. If she's working for you, she's making you money. And if you're doing a good job, people will see it, they'll offer you more work, and then you can grow. You can hire an assistant, you can hire a helper. By the time I was done, I had 8 helpers. That was just the crew that waxed. Then there's a whole other crew that does the boat washing. There's a whole other crew that does interiors. There's a whole other crew that does engine bays and all that BS in there. I had 9 guys with myself. At one point, all of us swinging a buffer. We could do a 200-foot boat in 2 weeks. That's pretty impressive. And it looked good. And people liked the results. And when we were done, no swirls. And that's what made us famous. The idea that we could do the same thing everyone else was doing, but our stuff made the boat look new, set us apart. That's what you need to start a business, is to have quality in your work. And if you have that, the sky's your limit. Anyway, let's stop talking about that. Let's get into actually doing shit on a boat, huh? Let's get into this. Let's pretend that you've got a boat and it's got some little marks on the side. Actually, this looks like a pretty decent gouge. Huh! I set you up because I thought this was a transfer. It is not. That goes into the boat a little bit. So that'll be something that we got to concentrate on. Maybe a little Super Duty, maybe even a little sandpaper. Honestly, you guys can hear that, right? Okay, that's not going to be easily buffed out. Let's take it on down the boat. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to set you up in a place that I couldn't show you anything. Womp womp. All right. Well, here's some stuff that we can talk about. Let me see if I can turn down the camera a little bit. And yeah. All right. So there you go. I got a little transfer that starts over here, kind of runs along here, goes all the way out to here. The very best thing that I found to fix this is grab yourself a terry cloth towel, something soft, it's not going to scratch anything. Grab some acetone, some denatured alcohol, paint stripper, paint thinner, whatever, and just kind of wipe back and forth. And what the chemical does is it actually breaks down the plastic that melted down the side of your hull, and once it's gone, it's just gone. And you don't have to do a lot of scrubbing, you don't have to scratch your boat, you don't have to get crazy with it. All you have to do is use enough chemical to melt that plastic and get it off the surface. Once that's done, you take your rag and your acetone or whatever it is you're using, and you move on down the boat and you find other things that are transfers. This boat has a bunch. Yikesies. Alright, I got a couple more up there and a couple more. Yeah, so anyway, let's just keep going around the boat and I will show you a few more of these. Not that you haven't figured out the whole plan. It's all very basic and very simple. Well, let's see what we can do over here. I'm not sure entirely if I'll be able to clean all this up, but I'll zoom you back out. Let's see if this nastiness comes out. Yikes. And I should probably also add, if you're doing this with acetone, you should wear gloves, maybe even a respirator. Don't breathe it, don't let it soak into your skin. I think it's all very dangerous, and it's probably going to kill you and give you cancer. So you guys should be careful. I, on the other hand, choose to live by the sword and die by the sword. And that's really not the case. It's just that I'm super lazy. Ooh, she's in there. Okay. Oh, and now I can see a crack. There's stress cracks going from here to here, so something hit pretty hard here. And it dug in pretty good. You probably can't hear that, but I can. This is just, if anything, mentally I'm thinking about what to do on all this stuff as I get around here. Just putting my head in the zone, you know. Sometimes things look easy and you think, oh, it's no problem, I'll just knock that out of the park. And then you see things like this where whatever rubbed into here has actually damaged the gel coat. And so I need to be cautious of that, just be aware of that, so that when I get in here, if I see anything that doesn't look right, I don't check myself mentally and go, oh, I'm doing it wrong. It's not you sometimes. Sometimes it's the boat. I hate to say that because that sounds like a cop-out, but it's true. Sometimes it absolutely is the boat's fault that you can't get it right. That might sound like I'm cheating or, you know, using some easy way to get out of doing stuff. It's not. Some boats just have a history that you can't undo, and as a detailer, you know, you try to get everything done the best you can, but some things are just, they are what they are. And at that point, you just try to make them look as good as you can possibly make them, and hope the owner doesn't, you know, exacerbate the situation by continually hitting things that cause these problems. All right, well, I've got a little bit more to go. The ones above you, actually directly above you, are going to be easy to get off. I say that. So maybe after I wipe this one off, I will show you what that looks like. Anyway, somebody recently had asked me about talking about the history of the DeWalt and how that all came to be. So let's see, while we're doing absolutely nothing, I will try to regale you with some information about that. A long time ago, when I was learning how to do this, I was selling boats. This was like 1996. And we had a boat detailer. He was really good. He came up from Florida. He would work on our boats, our fleet boats, for a couple months at a time. He'd bring his crew, and then he'd bounce. He'd go back down to Florida or Barbados, or I'm not sure where he hung out. But if you're aware of a guy named Jason Smith, he's a black kid, really muscular, really nice smile. Like, all the girls thought he was the shiz. I don't know whatever happened to him, but he was amazing. And so what I would do is I'd watch outside of my office window, and I just kind of watch what he was doing. And it was fascinating to me to watch this guy take, you know, old nasty boats and just drive them into pretty. And so I would watch him and we would talk, and he would talk about all the chemicals that he would mix up and this, that, and the other, and he just seemed like the guru, you know what I mean? I mean, like, there wasn't anything that he couldn't do that he couldn't explain. And I thought, well, that's really cool. And he took the time to show me and teach me and educate me on what he was doing so that I had an idea if I wanted to ever try it. Well, one day I asked him if we could borrow a buffer. So I had just bought a 1966 Cadillac limousine, and the paint was original. It needed a little bit of love. So he set me up with a pad and a little bit of compound, gave me a small block of instructions, and showed me what he would do on a car paint. So I did that, and the car shined up, and it looked good. And I thought, well, now I'm a detailer. And then he came by and showed me what I screwed up in the sun, and a long story short, I had a lot of learning to do. And in that, I was, well, I guess self-taught. I just kept trying with my car and this old ass paint to try to get some semblance of a shine out of it. And when I was finally able to, well, I thought, now I'm a boat detailer, or at least a car detailer. So many years later, I was living on board a 115-foot, what was it, Westport. And while I was working and living on this Westport, there was a detailer, a girl, fake tits, blonde hair, kind of a stupid smile, you know, just my type. And she needed somebody to work with her because she was absolutely worthless. And when I say worthless, I mean the only boats I ever saw her clean actually looked dirtier after she was done. Now, she was cute and she was funny, and at the time I even thought she was nice. Wow, was I wrong about that. But we decided to start hooking up, and every new boat that was sold in Seattle from 2005 till about 2013, her and I would commission, as it were. We would clean them, we would detail them, but we'd make sure that the master stateroom got used by somebody under the age of 80 for the first time in its entire life. And we did that to every boat we worked on. I don't necessarily think that that's a proud moment for me. As a detailer, we were using other people's boats for our own pleasure. But as they hadn't quite been delivered yet, it was seen as slightly acceptable. Anyway, fast forward to the point where she asked me, can I wax a boat? So I remind myself, oh yeah, I used to do that back in the late 90s. Yeah, sure, I can do it. So we get to our first boat, which is Cellular One, owned by the McCaw family, which is the family that basically brought cell phone technology to the United States. They were the first, well, not the first, I guess AT&T probably did it first. They were the second company to come out and do it. Sorry, I'm just working around you here. Okay, so the McCaw's boat, Cell One, was a painted boat. We didn't put a buffer on there, we just basically did everything by hand. And so technically we didn't do very much to the boat, but they were happy with us and they used us, and we got a couple compliments and moved on from there. My first buffer that I thought I needed came from the request to work on a bayliner. This is my first bayliner I'd ever worked on. And again, I'm just doing waxing on and off by hand, thinking that I knew what I was doing. I was dead ass wrong. I had no clue. Honest to God, I had no clue. So, I'm using this old Porter cable buffer, and it's fine. It's just like every other buffer on the market. It's got a speed dial, it spins clockwise, and it gets really hot, just like all the buffers on the market. And I used those for a long time until DeWalt, or Stanley Black & Decker, bought Porter cable, and when they did that, they started to knock down the quality, and it was rather noticeable. In other words, when I first bought Porter cables, we could almost guarantee they were going to last at least a year and a half before they started giving us problems. Generally, they would last about 3 years before starting to give us problems. And by problems, I mean maybe the switch would wear out, or maybe the motor would wear out, or the contacts would wear out. Something, just something stupid. After DeWalt bought them, we started noticing that we could get about 3 months worth of work out of them before they would fail. And this was annoying. So we went to Makita's for just a brief period of time for a number of reasons. One, all my guys were pansies, and they're not pansies. They're, you know, they're kids, and they didn't like holding a 12-pound, 13-pound buffer. They wanted something that weighed 11.5 pounds. And I was like, okay, whatever. Now, we learned really quickly that the Makita didn't have the oomph that the Milwaukee had, the old red Super Beast, and it didn't have the oomph of the old DeWalt, which we called Big Bertha. And I'll show you pictures of that right now. All of those buffers, as tough as they were healthy. They were heavy, they were ungainly, and there was very little control that you could exercise on them to manage the speed and the torque and everything that you needed to manage to deal with a buffer. So let's see. This leads me to a moment in my life where apparently I thought I was way more important than I actually was. And not so much that that's the case, but it's how it felt. I reached out to Makita and asked them if they would be interested in helping me design a buffer. And they said, yeah, what do you got? So I sent them a list of things that I wanted to see changed. And they sent me an email back saying, yes, we would like to buy the rights to all of your ideas. And for one reason or another, because I was an ignorant moron and I had an ego, my ego wanted to be a part of the process. My ego wanted my name to be on the buffer, or at least my company name to be on the buffer, so that we could get a little clout out of it. Makita said no. And that hurt me a little bit, only because I have a great uncle that used to do prototyping for Makita back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, or at least the 60s and 70s. He got all the new power tools that they would send to the US, and he would test them and give them their reports. And so I felt like there was a little history in our family. Also, an uncle of mine worked for Makita for a long time, and I'd grown to enjoy the company. I liked who they were as a company. So I thought, now what? What do I do? So I contacted DeWalt, and I gave them the same list of, I think, like 17 different ideas, modifications, and adaptations that I would like to see in a buffer. And they said, cool, what do you want? And I said, well, I'd be happy to work with you guys and prototype these with my crew, and we can give you updates and improvements, and at some point maybe we'll have an amazing tool. And they said, okay, what do you want financially? And at that, I had just been shell-shocked by Makita wishing to buy the rights to my ideas. But realistically, I was making enough money that I didn't need anything extra. So I just told them, if you can supply us buffers anytime we need them, I'm happy with that. And so for about eight years, that's exactly what they did. And remember, I had a crew of 9 guys. We were busted on these boats pretty hard daily. So we went through a couple buffers, and every time we did, DeWalt would grab the buffer, disassemble it, break it down, and I don't know if you guys know this, there's almost like a little black box inside of a buffer. It'll tell you when it died, what temperature it was running at, what revolution it was running at, what amp draw it was running at. There's probably like 5 or 6 other factors that it'll tell you, so that when it gets back to the factory and they disassemble it, they can kind of backtrack what took place and figure out what they need to improve to make it last longer. So fast forward, I went from a buffer that died in 3 months to one that, I mean, I still have one that runs from 2017, and I'm still like, that's what that was. And I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff that I'm missing. I asked DeWalt to write me a letter of, thanks, saying, hey, thanks for designing this. And all I got back was them saying, hey, our legal department says we can't do that, but their very last effort towards me was to send me a pallet of buffers and say thanks for your help. Okay. So as far as I'm aware, they took 14 ideas that I suggested. A lot of it had to do with the handle, the shape, the position of the speed knob, the trigger, the locks. Just look, I got small hands, right? I mean, I'm not 6'2". A lot of us out here are under 6 foot, so we needed something that while you're hanging over the edge of a boat and you're trying to get the water line, it's easy. I needed that first off. Second thing, we needed better ventilation. We needed a tighter control of the speed of the wheel. We needed a little bit less slop laterally. I needed a different shape to the head, something that conformed to your hand as opposed to using a handle. I also wanted a rubberized tip because having a giant aluminum or magnesium head on a boat is just asking for trouble. So these are some of the things that they did to address the polisher, and now, as far as I know, it's the #1 selling polishing tool on the planet. So if you use one, you're welcome. If you don't use one, you should try one. And if you're DeWalt, you guys should really say thanks, because that puts you on the map as far as I'm concerned in the world of polishing. Because up until then, everyone knew you made a polisher, but it was more of a grinder than anything. I mean, it was a brute of a machine, and while I still have one and love it, I never let my young guys or anyone who hadn't been working with me for about 3 to 5 years touch it, because that thing could rip your head off and it could really damage a boat. And the DeWalt DWP849X it's the Porsche 911 GT3 RS of polishers. I mean, I can grind on this boat and boats like this for the next year, and the thing is still gonna work. Yesterday, having a bad day, I threw mine a good 30 feet 3 times. Anger. Also, I have like 5 more in my car, so I wasn't. It was a bad day. I apologize. I've been going through some stuff, and it's making me have some dark thoughts, and I think they're affecting how I work and taking me away from what I should be focusing on. So I apologize for that, to you, to my buffer, to the universe. I'm trying to be clear, and if there's any sort of lingering drama that I exude, I apologize. I'm going to be trying not to talk about anything outside of boats for the rest of the time that you watch videos about boats. So there you go. There's the story of the DeWalt. They don't listen to me anymore. DeWalt doesn't care. I have ideas for a car polisher that the technology is such that, let's say you're a complete novice and a brand new person on black paint, the buffer is smart enough to correct your mistakes so that you don't leave a swirl. That's in my head. I've drawn it out. It's amazing. I also have some other ideas for a polisher for boats that I would love to work with DeWalt with, but again, they don't seem to care one way or the other. They've got what they need, and their market share has increased, and they're happy with that. They don't feel like they need to step up or do anything else. Unfortunately for them, the next company that allows me to work with them is going to get the next best buffer. So anyway, enough of that. I'm going to go around the boat just making sure I've got all the transfer marks. Once I'm done with that, I'll set you up. We'll start doing the thing that we do. All right? Cool. Thanks for hanging out. Well, in the spirit of trying different things, a buddy of mine has asked me to try some Suntory minus 196. I assume it's a vodka seltzer because it says so on the bottle. So 5.5% alcohol, just like the beer. Let's give this a shot. And this is grapefruit, so I'll try it. It's very clear. I don't know if you can see down in there, but it's clear. It doesn't have any color. All right, here we go. Actually, you know what? That is very refreshing. On a hot day, I can see drinking these. That's good. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, now I'm just going to go into this like, I don't know, like you've asked. Hey, show me what you do. So I've got a dirty wheel. Half of it's clean. The other side's a little gummed up. So I'm going to take a spur tool. You can find one of these on YouTube. Sorry, not YouTube. Google, eBay, whatever. It's just called a spur tool. I'm going to speed this up probably about 3,000 RPM, hold my breath, face it kind of away from me. I'm going to go from the inside to the out, the outside to the in. And to answer another question, no, I don't clean my pads. I haven't for 12, 15 years. I used to put them in the washing machine, you know, some Simple Clean and degreaser or whatever. It never seemed to make them last very much longer. In fact, it never seemed to make them last as long. This is what I do. It's what I've always done. Enjoy. And that's it. You don't have to push really hard. You don't have to bend the wheel at all. It's just let this thing run over it. The stuff's dry and now it's soft. Okay, I have two compounds out here. One is called Heavy Cut. It's Heavy Cut because it cuts heavy. The other one is called Perfected. It's called that because it perfects what the Heavy Cut did. Now, you don't have to use both of these. Or if it's a really bad boat, you don't have to use all three, the Super Duty, the Heavy Cut, and the Perfected. On this boat, because it's got a decent shine starting off, what I thought I would do is do a little test spot somewhere over here, maybe two little test spots. One, where I'm using Heavy Cut. In fact, I'll do that right now. And after that, I'll do a little section with Perfected. And what we're going to try to do is one of two things. One, we're going to see which product is going to give us the best shine on this particular gel coat, because all boats are different. Every boat, in fact, even if you had purchased 3 of these boats, by the time they're 5 years old, all 3 of the boats would have an entirely different history. Their pH would be completely different in the gel coat based on what soaps, waxes, environments that it was in. So I never really know. I have an idea of what it's going to take, but no, I have no idea. So let's do Heavy Cut right here. This might get a little bit loud. I apologize. And here, I'll move you to a place where you can see a little bit more of what I'm doing. There we go. Okay, here we go. Spreading out, I'm going to hit this edge, and that's about it. I'm just going to focus right here to see what I can get. This is another feature of the DeWalt that we added. It's the soft start. Now this was available on Makita, and nothing wrong with Makita except for they would overheat and explode. The heads, when it got too hot and you worked them, they would just, the grease would lose it. They're a comfortable tool and they're great for cars. And I know they have a new version, kind of based off of this, wink wink. It may be awesome, but I've held it. It's a little heavy still, and it's the top is not fun to hold on to. So I'm still not a fan of the Makita. I love the fact that they give you an extra work bag. That's awesome. Everybody likes that. All right, the very next step, once you spread out your compound, is do what I like to call crisscrosses. And what that is the wheel spins in a clockwise fashion, so as you're going this way, it leaves marks that go like that. Then I want to put it up on this side of the edge so that the marks go like that, and then you get the crisscross, which doubles up the effectiveness of the grinding that you're doing with a buffer. So I'm going to do that until the creaminess of the compound kind of goes away. When the white part kind of disappears, then I'll stop working it and start working it. All right, back to it. Sorry, you guys are distracting. All right, so now that the creaminess is gone, I'm going to flatten out a little bit and just kind of work it back and forth. put you on pause here. I'll grab a rag and we'll wipe this off and see what it looks like. Okay, I'm back. Now you saw me go a little bit faster than 600, 800 RPM. I grew up learning how to do this work on large boats. And I learned how to do it one-handed before I learned how to do it with both my hands. In other words, on big boats, a lot of times, especially when you're working on a dock, you're laying over that dock, stretching down to the waterline with a buffer in one hand, trying to get results like this. To help in that, I learned for me, speeding up helps stabilize the buffer and the pad. That being said, it takes a lot of practice, and I don't want you to go any faster than 1,000 RPM. The buffer's dangerous. Your boat doesn't need the risk. You don't need the risk. I have seen people knock themselves out with a buffer, spinning way too fast. They wrap the cord around their head, or it gets somehow caught while they're working. Either it whips the crap out of them as it spins around, or it'll wind up like a yo-yo if your cord's over your neck and hit you in the chin, and you're not only unconscious, but now you got a buffer spinning right on your. Go slow, unless you get really good. If you get really good, do anything you like. And if you want classes and learn how to do it fast, show up. I've been giving classes since 2011 effectively, but I've been teaching kids this since 2005. So if you're interested in this, and by kids, I mean people up to 80 years old have learned how to do this. It's not hard. It really isn't. And I hope you take a moment and figure out what I'm showing you, because if you can get this, even the simple one, you're doing great. All right, well, let's see. So yeah, I still see some, what do I call that? Fisheye in the surface. Little orange peel, I guess. Actually, not fisheye. Let's see if I can turn you up a little bit. Maybe you can see it. It's just a little bit grainy in the reflection. Let's see what maybe it looks like in the sun. I'll try to turn you up. Are you able to? Where's the sun? The sun's all the way over there. Okay, well I can't quite. Well, there you go. That's about as close as I can get. Sorry. All right. A big boat, and I am still recovering from a flu, so I apologize. My head's not really, it's not really where it's normally at. Let me give you a rundown of what I've done. So everything that you see that's kind of dull and dingy, that's Super Duty. Touched on everything that I could play with. In other words, if it was a scratch that I could get out, I went ahead and touched it. If it was a scratch that I couldn't get out, well, I tried, but I didn't succeed. That being the case, starting from the stern, moving forward, I'm just using heavy cut. Heavy cut by 3M on a wool pad, and this is the reflection I'm getting currently. I'll walk down the boat here. Oops, hey, that just, okay, there we go. All right, so this is just heavy cut, no perfected. Apparently I have to wipe off some. Actually, I guess I stopped right here. So I stopped here. This is the original surface of the boat, which isn't really all that bad. And all I've done is be able to clean it up just slightly so that the reflection's a little bit cleaner and a little bit darker. And I'm going to continue that through this hull, pushing my way forward. And once I'm done, I'll wipe it all down, I'll clean it, and I'll inspect it. And I'll look at the sun's reflection, and if I see that maybe there's a little teeny haze in there that I don't like, I might grab a foam pad and some perfected EXAC. But quite honestly, I'm not at all unhappy with this reflection. I'm pretty good with that. On a black hole with a wool pad, that's not bad at all. Carrying this forward, as soon as the hull is done, I will start working on the top side, but I still have the entire port side of the hull to do. I'll probably get working on that tomorrow, and if I think about it, and I'm a good YouTube channel guy, I'll probably show you some of that, because I didn't show you all that much right here. I'm kind of catching up. Like I said, I was sick for a couple days, so I've got a bunch of boats stacked up. And yeah, not a lot of time for me to set up the camera and do a lot of talking. So I apologize for that. If you guys have any questions, obviously the comment section is a great place for that. I answer everybody, I think. So if you have a questions, hit me up. If you don't mind, toss me a thumbs up. That goes a long way to convincing YouTube that people actually do like these videos, and they offer them as suggestions more and more often. So anyway, I will leave you alone till the next section of this boat. I apologize. Pieces.
Now see, that wasn't so bad. You learned a little bit of history of a buffer, and you saw me drink a vodka tonic, which, weird, but good.